And now I'd like to ask Henry Morris to come up here. He's going to lead us in our invocation.
Will you join me in prayer, shall we? Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we first of all want to say thank you. Thank you for yet another day you've given us. A day wasn't promised to us, but because of your love and your grace for us, you spared us once again. And you allowed us to continue in this service for you have rendered in our hearts and in our minds. Father God, I pray that you continue to touch each and every one of us, from the crown of our head to the very soles of our feet. Help us, Father, to continue in the Rotary tradition of giving service above self. And Father God, we just pray that everything that we do, I pray that it will be pleasing to you as we continue to serve you. And Father, we ask you to bless this food, bless the fellowship around the table, and continue to bless us in your service as we continue to serve you just as you have desired us to serve others. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Henry. It's always a pleasure to have you up here with us. All right, if somebody will hold up the cart bucket on your table. Let's fill these. Empty your pockets, put some loose change in there. You can write a check, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can also donate online. So, no excuses, folks. All right, it's time to welcome visiting Rotarians and guests. And where's Kim Mitchell? Our friend Kim Mitchell is going to come up here and do that for us.
Good afternoon. We have one visiting Rotarian today. His name is Joe Pope, and he is from the Columbia East Club. At this time, if you have guests, if you'll stand up and we'll go around and introduce them. No guests today?
Since we have no guests, let me use the time to get our visiting Rotarian Joe Pope from the Columbia East Club, who's selling onions, to tell you where he'll be so you can sign up for those delicious onions.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm back selling our magical onions. These Vidalia onions, I'm going to get off the truck tomorrow. I can deliver them to your house, to your office, to your girlfriend, to your boyfriend. Let me know where I can deliver these magical onions. Now, these onions are magical because they're cheaper than you can buy anything in the store. These onions also build better and stronger communities. The money we raise from these onions goes to help the Federation of the Blind, Sister Care, Meals on Wheels. It goes to our national or our regional camp where we take 6th graders from Hand Middle School, at-risk youth. We take them to Camp Gravit for a weekend, all expenses paid. We show them a good time. They go swimming, they do archery, they do hikes, they do ropes course, things that these kids would never be able to do. And it's all expenses. All the money that goes into that project comes from these onions. So I'm going to be right here at the doors. I'll be glad to take your order. Please let me know. And remember, these magical onions will not only good to eat, but they're inexpensive. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Kim. Well, we're going to kind of go with the flow with this whole thing today. So I did want to make a couple of announcements. First off, we have a deadline that's coming up on May 15th. That is, I believe, next Wednesday, May 15th. That is the date for us to be an E-Ray Club, every Rotarian, every year with the Rotary Foundation. So if you got an email from Mason Hardy, who is handling our foundation, if you got an email from him that you needed to go ahead and make your donation by May 15th, if you would please do that by next Wednesday. I know a lot of folks turned in their checks today. It's $25 is what we need to do for that, every Rotarian in this club, but really we're shooting for $100 per capita. So if you can make that happen, that would put us where we need to be with the Rotary Foundation. So just wanted to remind you guys of that. Also, if he was here, and hopefully he'll watch this, but today is President Stephen's birthday. So when you see him, or if you have him in your phone, send him a text message. And he's 40 today, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. Young little whippersnapper that he is. Okay, and we do need to take care of one more order of business before we get to health and happiness. So the Rotary bylaws, the Rotary International bylaws, and I'm going to read this out because I haven't memorized it. The Rotary International bylaws provide that there are 2 or more eligible past directors from any zone who have indicated they wish to serve as a member of the nominating committee for Rotary International President. The members shall be elected by the clubs in the zone. Dr. Ann Matthews, who most of us know and love, and we have seen her come and speak to us before, she's from our district, and she's running against Ron Farrell from Virginia. I just wanted to remind you that Dr. Ann Matthews, she's an educator, she's a published author, she's an education accreditation commissioner and a public speaker. She served as Rotary International Vice President in 2013 through 2014 and as a Rotary International Director, as well as many other top committee chairs. She understands the demands of Rotary on the international as well as the local level and has devoted her life to Rotary. She represents each and every Rotarian in District 7770. So at this time, I wanted to do a voice vote, and I wanted to call for a motion from the floor to nominate Dr. Ann Matthews for Rotary International Vice President. All right. Thank you, Rusty. And do I second? All in favor? Opposed? Right. All right. So we will inform them that we nominate Dr. Ann Matthews for this honor. Now, if Perry is ready, and y'all give him a little bit of a break because he didn't know he had to do health and happiness today, so he's going to do some tap dancing up here. So please welcome Perry Worth to the podium.
Yeah, I apologize. I had checked the schedule. My name was on there. I thought it was the next week, so y'all just bear with me. So I'm going to ad-lib this thing as best I can. So every time I get up here, we always talk about some type of Carolina Clemson football thing because we're in the Southeast and I used to play quarterback, so everybody assumes I'm the football guy. So the first thing I'm going to say, and then we'll get to the health and happiness notes that I had, is all you Clemson fans, how many Clemson people we have in here, raise your hand. So y'all last night, if you don't know this, y'all just signed the #1 quarterback in the country. He's out of California. Don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's a Polynesian guy, and I watched a little bit of his tape, and he's every bit as good as the one you guys have now, so congratulations on that. It's a pretty good deal. Still buying their players up there, you know. No, I'm just kidding, everybody's doing it. No, but they, just a little bit more about what they got going on. Football's obviously a passion, so I tend to see what they're doing up there. Right now they have the #1 recruiting class in the country, for all that you care. They'll probably be the preseason #1 team. You're bringing back just about everybody on offense, and on defense you lost a lot. You had 3 first-round picks on the defensive line, which was very impressive. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the NFL draft, but Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle, big, bright personality, went and chest bumped Roger Goodell. Thought that was pretty funny. Just anytime you have a 320-something pound dude chest bumping, standard guides, it causes for some commotion. Enough about Clemson. So South Carolina, we are not the #1 team in the country. We did not get the #1 quarterback in the country either. But I will say, I don't know if many of you guys know this or not, but full-time I sell insurance, but then on the weekends I train high school quarterbacks. I train them privately in group settings and one-on-one lessons, and then I've actually had the pleasure of training some of the South Carolina quarterbacks. And so one of them being Michael Scarnecchia, now he graduated, he's off, has potentially a tryout with the Los Angeles Chargers this weekend, which would be a blessing for him. And I've had the opportunity to work with Ryan Helinski, the new freshman quarterback from California. He was actually, according to ESPN, was the #1 pocket passer in last year's class, obviously came in early. Just a neat little note about Ryan. So his family, I don't know if you guys know their story, they had been through a lot. Their middle son took his own life last January, and what they're doing now is called Helinski's Hope. It's a foundation just raising awareness about mental condition, mental health. I thought it was really cool. They had an event here a month ago that I attended with a buddy of mine, Hayden Hurst, who has kind of taken a stance on mental illness. And if you were to sprain an ankle, right, you go outside, you trip on the curb, you sprain an ankle, you're going to go to a doctor to get it checked up. Well, why is it so frowned upon if you say, I know there's something going on inside of me that's not normal, like I'm just always having these weird thoughts and it just feel weird. Well, go see somebody. And so they're raising awareness about that. And I talked to his dad, and obviously his parents are still grieving that loss. I mean, you wouldn't wish that upon your worst enemy, but I did tell him, and he agreed that, they are making the most out of that situation, and to go through something like that and to be able to turn that to better society and better other athletes, because as an athlete, especially as a man, you're supposed to be, I'm tough, a quarterback, a football player, I'm going to stand in the pocket, take all the hits, and I'm the big tough guy. But then you can't even go and talk to somebody about something that you're struggling with. And I thought that was a really neat thing that they're doing. So if you guys have any time today or this week, I encourage you to go and just Google Helinski's Hope and read a little bit more about what they're doing. I think it's pretty remarkable. And but going back to Ryan, he's a special talent. I think he'll see the field this year for South Carolina. Obviously, for you guys that are Carolina fans, you know that we have a tough schedule. Actually, it's it's the hardest schedule in the country out of all 120 teams next year. So they're going to be going through the ringer, but it is what it is when you play in this conference, the SEC. So, and then did want to mention 2 more things. Henry Morris just celebrated last week his 26th anniversary, so that's pretty awesome. Congratulations, bro. And then last thing, I don't have any funny comments besides Clemson Panther guys. It's a beautiful time. It's starting to be a beautiful time of the year. Guys, get outside. I cannot stress enough how whenever you get outside, even if it's in the morning before it gets too hot, we have a beautiful river that runs right through downtown. Both sides, the Casey, West Columbia side, and then the Columbia side as well. It's an awesome opportunity to kind of get out, and I like how they've preserved some of it for nature to get out and just enjoy it. Get outside and be outside, taking that vitamin D, it's good for you. But Peace nailed that together pretty good, so I'm out of here. See ya.
Harry, I absolutely second that. Get outside. I hate being indoors. It just doesn't do anything for my brain, but we do have a beautiful, beautiful area to enjoy, so get out as much as you can if your allergies don't bother you too much. This weekend, my daughter ran a 5K. My little 11-year-old daughter ran a 5K. And yes, so if you follow me on Facebook, I said that the Powers women, we don't run unless something is chasing us, like ever. When I was a kid growing up, my dad used to tell me, because I played softball growing up, and my dad used to tell me, Carrie, you better learn how to hit that ball really far, because you sure can't run fast enough. So I was a big hitter, yeah. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take just a few minutes and have a table social. You guys go refill your drinks and get some dessert and do what you need to do, and then we're going to reconvene and welcome our speakers. So we'll take just a few minutes. Try to All right, let's reconvene. I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to Margaret Clarkson, and she is going to introduce our speaker.
It's always just a little tricky back here. There are a couple little crevices that people in high heels seem to fall into. I know you guys don't suffer from that. Thank you, President Karen. It's my honor today to introduce Mary Beth Sims Branham. She is not only a long-term friend of mine, but she's a leader in our community, and I have looked up to her for years, even though I am just a little bit taller than her, even when she has heels on, so I'm rocking. Mary Beth is an active member of the AIA of Architects and is Vice President and Principal of LS3P's Columbia office. LS3P is a regional architect firm with 8 offices across South and North Carolina with more than 350 professionals on staff. Mary Beth started the Columbia studio for LS3P early in 2004, and it was the only startup office for the firm. LS3P is celebrating their 15th anniversary this year, and the office has grown to 16 architects, interior designers, and staff, and is listed as the 5th largest architectural office in the Midlands. Mary Beth is a native from Columbia. She is passionate about transforming the landscape of her hometown. Her father, Lana Sims, was a well-respected lobbyist for the South Carolina Railroad Association. At her dad's untimely death at the age of 45 from a heart attack, her mother, who many of you may know, Priscilla Sims, went on to become one of the first female lobbyists in the state, the CSX Corporation, and received the Order of the Palmetto upon her retirement. Mary Beth has a multicultural heritage. Her mother, Priscilla, is a native of the Republic of Panama. Mary Beth lived part of her childhood in Panama and speaks Spanish fluently and continues to visit family there whenever possible. Her passion for architecture may have well been an inherited talent from her late Panamanian grandfather, who was an accomplished architect and graduate of the University of Virginia. Mary Beth manages an office with a broad range of project types. She specializes in K-12 facility design, leads the firm's K-12 design initiatives for South Carolina. She is speaking today on the subject of school security. Her experience includes the design and programming for more than 100 schools in the Southeast over her career. This specialty led her to being actively involved in holding leadership positions with K-12 educational organizations such as the Association for Learning Environments, Architects, Construction and Engineering, Mentor of the Midlands, and the Riley's Institute, South Carolina Coalition for Community Learning Centers. A few of the projects the firm is working on that designed is the Safer Communication Ballpark, thank you Blake, the USC Alumni Center, All South Federal Credit Union Headquarters, Richland II Institute of Innovation, the City of Columbia's parking garage, the Cannon Parking Garage, and currently in design is the SLED Forensics Laboratory. Mary Beth is a 1981 graduate of the architectural design from Clemson University. Mary Beth has continued support for her alma mater. She served on the Clemson Advancement Foundation Board for 10 years and was a member of the Professional Advisory Council for the School of Architecture. And a note for the Gamecocks in the room, because you Clemson guys still outnumbered down here. She also has a, you had your degree at USC, did you? No, you don't. You attended USC, but you're a member of the Alumni Association. But she also designed the Alumni Center. But she says her most important accomplishment by far is her role of a mother of 2 wonderful children, the late Wesley Brax and Daniel Branham, who just turned 24 years old. Please let me introduce Mary Beth Sims Branham.
Watch these little crevices up here in your heels. Thank y'all so much for the opportunity to be here today. I think this topic is one that is certainly one that no matter where you are in your life, this is something very serious that we all are facing in today's day. It's even tragic, just the recent thing that happened in UNC Charlotte. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about what I think is about the balance of the safety and security of our children, but also in creating wonderful learning environments for them as well, because we're not in the business of designing prisons for our students and our children, but it is about how do we blend the two. So I'm going to show you a few examples of how I think we've been able to do both of those. Margaret already mentioned a little bit about our firm, so I won't go into a great bit of detail about how fortunate I am to be part of such a wonderful organization. As she mentioned, we're celebrating our 15th anniversary here this year, so I'm very excited to have a fabulous team of folks that I work with, including Miss Margaret here. So we're really excited. We've got some great things that we've done and great things for our future. But just as a firm, just so you know a little bit about LS3P, we have a diverse portfolio. As you can see, it kind of falls into about 5 different categories of live, work, learn, heal, and serve. Today, obviously, I'm going to highlight our knowledge about the learning communities, and particularly as it pertains to K-12. As Margaret mentioned, one of the things that we've been leaders in K-12 education for years, the firm in general has. So we have definitely more than 2,000 K-12 projects in our firm history. We also have K-12 design experts, of which one I'm passionate about myself and participating in quite a bit, and that we're leaders in the A4LE. So I'm a past president of the the Association for Learning Environments, which is a wonderful organization that brings together school facilities folks with architects, engineers, and construction folks who really concentrate on school design and how to make schools a better place to learn. And as you can imagine, the biggest topic that we're talking about these days is school security. But we're all doing it together. So I want to go over a little bit about what I consider the best practices for how architects design in today's society for the best school safety. As we all know, there are many things that threaten our children, and a lot of different emergencies. Back in the day, fire used to be the biggest thing that was our concern very, very early on. Unfortunately, nowadays, we've taken care of a lot of those issues that we've considered about the fire safety and other secure things, but the active shooter component is one that unfortunately we're having to really focus on these days. But I think it's important to note that some of the things that you might hear, one of the things I want to do today is maybe debunk a few myths that you hear out there in terms of what we see about school design. Like I've heard comments like, we have got to get rid of all the exterior doors. Well, as you can imagine, you know, we don't want, we want kids to be able to get out from those doors. We are bound by code for them to escape during a fire, during an active shooter. They are exit-only doors. So I want us to be aware as you hear things in your own communities to be able to be sure to say, well, that's not really a pragmatic way of looking at how school security needs to be looked at. It really is a team approach. I think that we've just talked a little bit about mental health. We all know that this is a bigger problem than just how do we design the school to be safe. And it is a team approach. You can see all the types of folks that need to be involved in making the decisions, from social workers, first responders, architects and engineers, just the community in general, and how do we approach that. And we look at school security in 3 major components. One is the emergency plan itself, and I'll talk a little bit about that, which is usually coming from the school's perspective. Security and communications, which I would call a very active portion of design. And then architectural and environmental design, which is what I would call a more passive approach to school security. It's really a combination of active and passive security that's important. So in terms of emergency plans, the good news is districts are more prepared now than ever. You've probably seen a lot of information about what the school districts are doing in terms of having their students and faculty be prepared. They're doing drills. They understand where the evacuation routes. Early on, several incidents in South Carolina, for instance, up in Anderson School District 4, part of their issues were they didn't have a plan in place and nobody knew where to go. So there was a lot of different issues that affect them, and so it's a nice thing that people are focusing on it now, particularly from the school district's perspective. This is the other portion I talked about being the very more active portion of security system, which is the technology that goes with it, the security cameras, the intrusion detection systems, all of those things that are key. One thing that I would note is this, you see the two-way radio boosters. One of the things that we're doing now is not only in new schools, but in older schools, we are making sure that radio frequencies are boosted so that communication can happen easily between the school staff and first responders. So this is something that Office of School Facilities has put into place as a mandate for making sure that communication, which is a key component of security in the event of an active shooter or other event. And then to really delve into the architectural and environmental design, which of course is my area of expertise. It really is a team approach. Again, we don't tag on security to the end of the design. It is integral as we're designing the facility that we're looking at all of that and we're bringing the right people to the table for that discussion. And what we follow are what we call the CEPTED principles, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And it's focused on 4 major tenets, which is to deter an intruder, to detect them, delay them, and then to defend. And so I'm going to show you a few strategies about how we can influence those 4 tenets. The bottom line is it is about how do we make sure that we discourage unwanted activity, that we can spot something that's happening. This is another area where I'd like to debunk a myth. One of the other statements I heard or do hear often is, we have to get rid of all of the glass in school. Well, we know that from an educational perspective, that's not a great solution, but it's also glass and visibility is a key deterrent so you can see a perpetrator or intruder before they enter your school. So glass is actually a great thing to have, and to make sure that that visibility becomes something that people are deterred because they realize they might see me walking up with something that I shouldn't be holding. So those are some of the things that is about really delaying those folks once they get in as well. And I'll go into what I call the 4 concentric circles. So we start really big. We think about the site in general. So there's 4, so we start at the perimeter. It's like these different zones of security. So it begins at the perimeter of the school. And it's about looking at that visibility that I just mentioned and being able to see these spaces. We don't want any hiding places for anybody. So we make sure that the parking lots, the landscaping around is low. So they're not corners and things that folks can hide in. So those are some of the things that we start to think about. Site planning is the very first thing that we architects do, is work about, okay, what are the limits of our site, and then how can we minimize some of these areas so that we can make sure that we see spot intruders to begin with. So let me show you a few strategies. This is just an example site plan, and it gives you a few ideas. Let's see, is that little thing work? So one of the things is a clear, identifiable entry for all visitors. If you see someone walking around the school that's not coming towards the front entry, you know that person is out of place and doesn't need to be there. So what we're doing now, some of the older schools, as you may know, it's hard to find where the front door is. And so one of the things we strive for now is really making sure that front door is very visible. A lot of times, and we will have a separate student entry at the bus entry as well as the car drop-off area. Those entries are only open during drop-off and pickup time, and then they're completely closed off for the rest of the day. So it's just very supervised when that's happening, and then they're closed off for the rest of the day. The other thing that we do, of course, is fencing is a part of the perimeter of the building and the site. So one of the things we look at is the playground areas, and how can we most playgrounds, as you know, have a fence around them anyway. And the site proper may have a fence around it. But it's also about, let's look at new ways to maybe shield the playground by using the building to actually hide the playground. As you know, sometimes we don't have that benefit. The site is limited and we might have to have playgrounds in the front, but they're always fenced. But we're really looking at new ways of how do we secure our playgrounds even more. And then little strategies like, as you probably know, that we're required by DOT to put as much drop-off lane on-site as possible. So you have this long car loop for cars to come in and loop all the way around and then drop off so that you don't have cars on the road. And one of the things, another strategy is to, after drop-off hours, is we can lock down that part of the loop so that any visitor has to be in the front of the school and very, again, visible by your administration. So again, these are just some site strategies of what we're looking at and do very consistently. And now we move to kind of the building perimeter itself. Looking at, again, back to the clear point of entry that we have right here, also making sure that entry and exit doors are locked down. So another key element of all the exterior doors that's part of the emergency plans is to make sure teachers and students know not to prop open the exterior doors. As you all know, that's been one of the issues that happened at a couple of the problems that we've had in the nation. So part of it is just training and understanding that those exterior doors are only for exiting, and please do not leave them open. So making sure those doors are locked down. In fact, we're looking at some solutions now where there won't even be exterior hardware on those doors. So in the event that one was left unlocked, you wouldn't be able to open it at all from the exterior. So again, we're working with Office of School Facilities, with Molly Spearman. We're talking about a lot of these different solutions for security. And then, of course, security cameras that we want to have all around the exterior. Again, if there's security cameras, a lot of times that will help deter an intruder. And then bollards. You may have seen some of these in front of schools now. Again, just worrying about the possible event of a vehicle coming towards our children as they're waiting. So we've done some things like bollards or large planters that are made out of bricks so they look a little more friendly, again, as a way of deterring and not allowing intruders to come in. And then as we start to move in closer, we're looking at what we call secure entry vestibules, which basically, in effect, does not allow someone to get beyond that front door and into your school. I'll show you some floor plans in a minute, but the idea is you can be buzzed into this main entry. Then your receptionist can actually see who's at the door and decides whether they're going to buzz you into the reception area. And then you come in, and as you know, nowadays in schools, everybody has to have a security check. You have to have your license, and they make sure they run a security check. And then, if you need to go into school, they buzz you into the school itself. So there are all of these layers of ability to make a difference in terms of, so some of the things, so what we're looking at now are some bullet-resistant glazing in some of these areas. You can imagine that bullet-resistant, there's really no bulletproof glazing, but bullet-resistant glazing is a very expensive proposition. And so what we want to do is find just the right spaces to put those in. So in this kind of a scenario, this would be the type of area where we might look more so to incorporate that rather than all throughout the school. And another thing that we're looking at nowadays is potentially not having this lower level of glass, but perhaps that is a solid wall, so that in the event that someone was able to get into this, and you would be able to get safe haven below the windowed mullions. So again, new strategies where it still has natural glass, but it also allows you to have safe haven. Here I just wanted to show you, again, kind of a unique new strategy that we're looking at because of some of the events, like Sandy Hook and some of these others that you've heard about, where the administration is actually not part of the reception and the entry. That keeps your principal and assistant principal not in the direct path should there be a particular incident. It allows them to handle the situation separately. So what you have is, you would have a clear visitor entry. Again, these doors are locked down. They're only open during drop-off and pickup, and then they're locked down completely. So you would buzz to be allowed into this reception area. You'll notice that even behind the reception area, we have what's called a safe room and a control room. These are things that we are adding in to a lot of facilities now, where in the case of someone getting beyond this secure point, that they can take safe haven behind the reception area and actually go into a control room that has the cameras and the TV screens to know where an intruder might end up in the school. So it's the exact point when they might need to be in control of wherever this intruder might need to be. You can see I mentioned the clear sight line, so a lot of times we put the principal and the assistant principal on the perimeter. So again, they have visibility of what's going on during drop-off and pickup, during any kind of specific hours during the day, as well as the SRO, the school resource officer. Now, most of the time the school resource officer is encouraged to be walking around the school site as opposed to being in his or her office. But the idea here being, if he is in the office, he has clear sight lines of where that main entry and folks are walking through the school. Of course, as we move into the interior in general, many of the same things we've talked about on the exterior apply to the interior in terms of figuring out could there be places that we want to put bullet-resistant glass, looking at door hardware for automatic lock when in the midst of an intruder alert that they would automatically lock down, and of course cameras on the interior as well as the exterior. But I also, back to what architects do a lot of is the passive part of security. One of the best things that we can do is lay out a school where you have one kind of point of entry where you can see down that your sight lines are clear down a complete hallway, so that not only are you making sure that the children are safe, but that you've got that visibility very clearly from any aspect of the school. You can see with these little shaded areas, so you've got also access controls at different levels. So the first one being that secure entry vestibule that I just zoomed in on. And then if the intruder were to get beyond that into this inner circle, there are lockdown doors all around that as well. So again, all those doors will be locked down immediately. But then again, if an intruder got beyond that, these others are control points where there's more lockdown happening. And then, of course, the doors to the classrooms as well. So it's again about those levels of security throughout the facility. But as I mentioned, one of the things I want to talk about or expand upon is the fact that we know security is so important, but so is the wonderful dynamic learning environment for our students, and really creating a space where they feel safe, but they also want to go and learn. And 21st century learning is all about open collaboration space, lots of natural daylighting, and so what we don't want to do is give up all those wonderful things that help our children learn in wonderful project-based learning ways, but to also provide them ways that we can have that and also be secure with all the different ways I just showed you. So I'm going to show you a couple of two case studies, or several case studies, from renovation projects that we've done all the way through new construction to kind of show you how we've solved some of those problems. So here's a standard renovation project where you can see on the left that before, basically a visitor could enter and go straight past the office area and straight into the school. Theoretically, those doors could have been locked down, but it's more open, and it's not allowing the visitor to understand that there's a process and procedure for security. So you can see on what we did is we came in and created another set of doors that's completely locked down. So the visitor comes in, has to be buzzed in by the lobby receptionist, then they go through the secure checkpoint, and then they're allowed and buzzed into the school proper. So we're seeing lots and lots of retrofits right now. We're getting called almost daily by school districts that want to take their open lobby areas and convert them to secure entries. So I think they all see the importance of that, and they weren't designed that way back in the day. So even if the school is going to remain older in design, at least what we can do is make the front entry a little bit more secure. Another thing that you've heard about in some of the unfortunate events is that there are a lot of older campuses that have multiple school buildings on the campus. And the risk that happens, because you don't have just one clear entry point at this point and exit doors, you now have many different avenues for that to happen. So some school districts we're working with, we actually are doing replacement schools where we're converting those that were multiple buildings into one combined building. This is in Aiken High School, and you can see on the left here, you can see that there were multiple buildings. Most of these were connected with outdoor covered walkway connectors. Even though it looks like one building, they were outdoor covered connectors. And then they even had classrooms in this annex building, which is way across campus. So they knew that we needed, by a series of additions, demolitions, renovations, that we would eventually replace this entire school with what you see on the right, which is a school that's combined and it's all interior class corridors connected between all of those. So that's another way that we are solving the problems through the different things I mentioned to you before. And this is where it starts to get combined with creating this wonderful environment. So you've seen that secure entry vestibule that I mentioned in the plan, but it can also be a wonderful place for pride. I mean, they've got their school emblem on the floor and they walk in. So the students, it is a safe environment, but it's a beautiful environment too. I mean, they're the Hornets, and we got a light up there that looks like a honeycomb up above it. And so it really gives the students this sense of, okay, I'm still coming into my school, I'm proud of our school, but yet it also says to the intruder, okay, I got a lot of glass here, I can see what you're doing if you enter into this area. They have to go through the lobby space before they are entered into the school, just as I mentioned. And then we have some wonderful ways to have exciting media centers where they still have all this natural glass and are able to have these wonderful learning environments. In terms of new construction, I want to show you a couple of projects that we've recently completed. This is Jackson Creek Elementary School that some of you may have seen out on North Trentham Extension there. So again, back to kind of creating this wonderful entry vestibule. So that is one of the most exciting places in the school. We kind of designed it. It's the International Boulevard, and so we wanted to bring in kind of Frank Lloyd Wright's idea of stained glass windows and whatnot. And during the day, there's all these beautiful colors of light come into that vestibule. So even though it's this important, secure thing, it's also a beautiful environment. As visitors, the parents come in. I mean, most of the people that are coming in are people we want to feel great about their school. So you can see that that's kind of, you see that this plan is kind of arranged with more of the core spaces on the inside, and then there are what we call classroom neighborhoods that flank them by age group level. So you have pre-K, first, second, and third, that type of grouping. You have your classrooms all grouped together by age group. So as I mentioned, this is the front entry, which is this image. And as you go through the school, as I mentioned, and I apologize, I should have zoomed in here, that you can't get past this secure entry until you come into this lobby space and go through your secure check. And then you're allowed into the school, and you can focus on these beautiful areas like your media center that has all this natural glazing so you can see into those learning spaces. But what the district particularly likes about this plan, and what we think works really well, is that as opposed to a corridor with classrooms all off of the corridor, like in a normal, what we call double-loaded corridor with classrooms with lots of doors on them, what we've created are these neighborhoods where basically you can't get into these doors enter you into the neighborhood of classrooms. So in the event of a security breach, these doors would automatically lock down, so your 6 classrooms in that neighborhood are automatically safe, right? So it's not each door, it's the door to the neighborhood. And so that goes throughout the entire facility. You can see this is an elementary school, and we color code them for wayfinding for the little children so that they understand where their neighborhood is and that sort of thing. But here's kind of a zoom in of what that neighborhood looks like, where you have this wonderful open collaboration space with lots of natural or lots of glazing between these flexible classrooms. They do a lot of cross collaboration. The students and the teachers come out into this open space, and they're able, and yet they feel very safe behind their secure entry, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is create those wonderful environments. Here's kind of an image of what that space looks like. You can see there's flexible furniture that we designed with the school that allows it to be moved around and done in different ways. And again, the students feel wonderful inside their little neighborhoods, feel very safe and secure. And then, of course, in their classroom spaces. You can see that that space becomes even more valuable, where you can actually set up chairs and they can do a little program for the students in that little classroom neighborhood. So again, really allowing us to have those great maker spaces and still be able to be secure. And then, of course, throughout the school, there are more checkpoints in terms of doors that close down into what we call the larger core areas, like the dining and the stage area, as well as the media center. And then, how am I doing on time? Okay. Okay, so I'm just wrapping it up here with my final project, which is Balanced with what is a very unique project type, and I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to go see the Richland II Institute of Innovation, but it was a fabulous project to be a part of because it is very unique in combining some very public areas with also some areas that need very private access. This is behind Sandhills, in case any of y'all have been out there. But it's a wonderful project where this gray area here is basically a very open public space that anyone, you don't have to be part of that community or that district, you can come in and set up your laptop and hang out. There's a dining area in the back. It's a wonderful, very open space. And then off of it are these major components, like the Sandhill Branch Library is now a partner in this building. The district office, a 3-story district office is there as well. The student learning labs, these are advanced CTE programs that are not taught in every school, but high schoolers from all the district schools can come here and take advanced CTE classes. And then we've got lots of meeting rooms and things, and then upstairs is an actual conference center. So you can see this is a real security kind of question, right, is how do we balance that sense that this is a public building that we want people to come into, and yet it's got safety and security protocols in place. You can see that one of the ideas was to really see, they call this a fishbowl of learning, to actually see between spaces. So the idea was that it be very visible between the different aspects of the building, and we have a lot of natural daylighting coming in as well. Again, a really important component for workplace environment as well as school environment. So zooming in a little bit, as you enter, again, it's very much there's no secure entry in terms of walking in. Basically, anybody can walk in there. There is a security guard placed in the front of this building at all times, and several throughout the building, but there's always one here. You have to check in just like you would anywhere else and get your secure card scanned as well. And then, of course, they have escalators that take you up to the conference center that are usually closed off if there's not an event going on. But as you enter upstairs, it is, again, a public conferencing center, and they have events pretty much 24/7 there. And you can see the different configurations. Of course, the doors during non-conferencing times would all be locked down, so it would only be very supervised during an event where they're having a conference. The Richland Library, of course, is very public. From what I understand, it's one of the best attended libraries in the entire public library system for the county. And so they're open almost 24/7. I think there's a sense in this building, back to the deter concept. It's a big building, and it's got a lot of people in the building, so you know that there are a lot of people watching what you're doing. There's cameras everywhere. I think there's something to be said for activity that deters as well, and I think that's a big component of this building. Of course, the district office, they do have a secure key card entry. You cannot enter that district office unless you have a key card entry for any of the areas. But they can also, you can see that if you're some person that's doing something they shouldn't be doing, there is a lot of eyes on you in this facility. There's windows everywhere. And then, of course, the student center, we treat it just like a school would, where they also have key card entries. And are able to enter completely from a different side of the building. But the whole idea was here is to be able to see those students at work. So there's a lot of glass so that once you're in that public space, you do get to see the exciting things that the students are working on. So it's very transparent, but yet it feels safe because they're behind this secure environment. So you can see that this is kind of applying some of the principles I talked about earlier about very large project-based learning spaces, and then rooms, their classrooms actually have roll-up doors, and most of them stay open all the time. So there's activities going on all day long with that great ability to collaborate. And that was it. I'm sorry if I went through that kind of quickly, but I think it is a balancing act. We do want to make sure that our children are safe above and beyond anything else, but we also want it to be a place they want to go and learn. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and answers. Yes, ma'am.
For the kids, unfortunately, that bring weapons to school. I know we talk about intruders, but particularly like in your middle and the high schoolers, are we going to the kinds of things where you have at the airport, where you have to go through a?
There are some school districts that are putting metal detectors in, absolutely. It goes back to, okay, so one comment I heard was, let's put them at every door. Well, we probably don't need to do it at every door, but if there are schools that want to implement them at the higher level, where they mostly might be concerned with that, it would be at that where I showed you the 2 student entries, where the bus drop-off is and the car drop-off. Those would be the main entries that you do it, but not at every door.
Do you see more of that happening?
I'm not seeing a lot of that happening. I mean, one of the things that schools are faced with a lot of challenges, as we all know from the recent events at the State House, and one of them is funding. And so I think what they're trying to do, I've seen more school resource officers implemented at schools that may not have had them before than I am metal detectors. Yes?
What's the cost to do one of those renovations you talked about, like an existing school where you make a secure entryway? What does that typically cost a school to do that? And then also, to answer the question, what is the cost for a set of metal detectors typically?
I don't know the cost of a metal detector, I apologize. That would be the more active part that's technology. But it varies. I hate to be vague about the secure entry piece of it, but it depends on how much infrastructure you have in place to begin with. We're doing one right now for York School District 1 where it's a very open lobby and we're able to create with existing doors kind of a reception area and then the secure vestibule, and it's under $1 million. It's $600,000, but we're also upgrading the fire alarm system and we're boosting the frequency that we mentioned. So a lot of times it goes hand in hand with a lot of different systems, like upgrading their fire alarm becomes a really big thing, and it tends to add to the project. So there is kind of it's not just, oh, let's just put doors up and create a secure entry vestibule, unfortunately. Anybody else? Well, thank y'all so much for the opportunity.
Mary Beth, thank you. That is a coin with our 4-way test on the back. We appreciate you being here with us today. Judging by the looks on everyone's faces, we're all very grateful that you're doing what you're doing. It's a sad state of affairs that you have to go to such lengths to keep our children protected, but I'm so glad you are. It is like Fort Knox trying to get into both of my kids' schools, so we appreciate what you're doing. President-elect Louisa, if you'd like to come up. Tell us who's going to be here.
Next week we have USC's retiring president, and his wife, Precious Patricia. And we're also going to host our 3 scholarship recipients for this year, their families, teachers. And speaking of teachers, we're making a special recognition for 3 teachers.
We can't be here at all.
I'll give you a recap in just a moment when she finishes.
Getting the 3 teachers that made a difference in the lives of these scholarship students. We're making that a them. So it's going to be a full meeting, a packed meeting, but a very exciting meeting.
Okay. So we've got President Pastides and his lovely wife Patricia, our 3 scholarship recipients, and the teachers who impacted them the most. Yes? That pretty much sums it up? That's going to be an exciting program. You're doing a great job this year. Okay, so with that, I think that's everything. Thanks for having me up here today, you guys, and we're going to go ahead and end in song.